Hello people, Linker here with an important follow-up update about Leofric, about campaign, about the tier list, and a little bit of a surprise in the end, so you definitely want to stay tuned for that. And we have so much, I'll just skip the intro. As many of you pointed out, I summarized Leofric shortly. I did not talk about Twisted Realm, where he could be but ended up not being viable because I predicted he won't be viable. I did not talk about the signature effect at 20 because I wanted to focus on what's relevant. So if you didn't watch that video, definitely go check that out. Now I'm going to assume you did, so we're going to talk about him in depth. What matters for Leofric is going to be the immunity and it's going to be the fear. And both of these have a little bit of an issue. For the immunity, we wanted him to be able to do it like on Lucretia, like Alna does, like keep her immune, keep her on the field. The invisibility and the timing on it are tricky to pull off. This is not to say that it's impossible to pull off, but this is definitely saying he's not as high as we thought he is. Stuff like Lucretia, Isolde can still work without a backline, but essentially you're giving up everything on the field for 5 seconds of immunity that's harder to pull off than usual. As for the fear, it's also tricky to do. It's not like walk and instantly do it. The internal cooldown on that is long. It's like 10 seconds, I think. So you're left kind of wondering, what can you actually use the fear for? And while it does proc every 10 seconds, so in a slow composition with Alna or God Comp Core as something, you could proc it. It's not as easy as we thought. So Leofric has some issues. Where does that leave us? In PvP, it's going to be essentially the same. Wales will invest in him high, he'll be a clunky second Alna, probably see some usage, probably not everywhere. In PvE, he's going to be slightly worse off. You still should get him in one copy. For some sets, he's going to be the make or break, especially new campaign settings. Second Alna possibly could be incredible. Easier to proc than some other immunity effects, for example, Elward. So still could be useful, has the hyper bonus on him, but he's going to find himself between the A and the B tier. Around 150 points, so around here, like maybe like somewhere in the Prince of Persia area. Speaking about the tier list, I'm actually really proud of it. I don't think it fell off meaningfully. Let's actually walk through one of the only dynamic changes that we did see in the patch, like predictive tier list, so you can't predict everything, but you can predict how the tier list will kind of look. Odin got a slight nerf. I want you to actually see what goes through my head when I go on these. So my understanding is that Odin got nerfed. We couldn't predict it. Lilith rarely nerfs, but that probably drops him a little bit in viability. This is not interactive. But yeah, probably drops him a little bit in viability, probably gives rise to other carries that in the past would have been power creeped by him. So Ainz, Damon, Kren can all see like 10, 20 points up. People can also move up, maybe even meaningfully, depends on where she goes, but there we'll have to do that after testing. We'll have to understand where he is, where he was. I think I even placed her slightly little bit too low meaningfully, like in the last one maybe, like a couple points. She's one of the only heroes that I think this tier list overall is really consensus. It's going to be very strong. It's going to be the go-to resource for endgame players if you want to know what you're doing. There's still the SI and the furniture tier list. These are going to come later. Many of you asked me for them. These take a lot of time to do because of the whole process we go through. We have the content creators, the endgame data fetching, and campaign just changed like meaningfully. So before we come up with that, I really want to be confident about it because I want you to have a good resource to refer to. I want to be confident of these priorities because if it's inaccurate, then what are we even doing here, you know? So yeah, so that's that. But we did talk about how campaign as a whole has changed. So I saw that one Reddit meme, probably some of you seen it, doesn't really matter, but when they talk about how chapter 35 used to be 5 sets, it's like this old guy coming to his grandson. I talked about it also briefly in the last video, but I do have a couple notes here I think you will like. Let me know below if you like this kind of analysis, and if you do, definitely like and subscribe, helps me out. Campaign nerfs are moving faster. Players progressing through the campaign move slower. So, you know, like, even if the campaign got nerfed, eventually you'll get to where you were, to the same kind of power deficit with the heroes that you do have, with a good depth or diversity. Depth wins in the endgame, but you'll get stuck at times 6, times 7, times 8, depends on what you have, right? So by the point you get stuck, campaign's gonna move slower and slower, and their nerfs keep coming faster and faster. They're putting on the same kind of content, and the rewards do not change much. I don't know how many of you know this, I don't know if this is a secret, but Dust stops increasing up to chapter 29, and Dust is the #1 resource for leveling, which is the most meaningful gauge for how much power you'll have, except for how much you pay. So yeah, yeah, the rewards stop coming. You're slowing down. So in this day and age, like there's not much to measure yourself when you progress. And the only gauge you really have is other players. Now, I don't know how I really feel about that because there's obviously going to be the F2Ps feeling a little bit salty and you're going to have your up times and down times. Sometimes it can really put you down in a gotcha game when you progress this slowly as the game has it. The reason all of this is relevant is because endgame players want something new. We suggested stuff like huge bosses. I think TR made bosses a chore more than a challenge. I want to have 3 waves of Riz throwing tiny swords where you have to target. Give me something complicated. Make a structure that I have to beat with archers or something. Make it interesting for me to fight. Tell me a story. I don't want a peaks of time kind of thing. I like the system, but I think it's getting a little bit old. I want a boss. Other games have this. Idle Heroes, Raid, Shadow Legends, Lord of Heroes I'll talk about. I like it personally, but many systems have bosses that are so fun to fight. AFKArena should have one too. It's one of the best games I've seen. Why are we not having a good boss system yet? We have Kane in chapter 1. What's up with chapter 36? Yeah, so that's that. But instead of that, we have solidified campaign. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this is what chapter 40 looks like for the most part. Players can spend years like this in the future, and the replays are becoming boring. Some players discover stuff I know Portal Core was discovered a while back, and I'm sure some people will discover funny things with Quinn, with Prince, but if Lilith is going for exposure, they don't have much incentive to change that, and all the indicators kind of show this is where they were going, which I can appreciate. I know, they want to get the bottom line, they want more players because endgame players that got hooked in chapter 35 are not gonna leave. So I really hope they will come forward with new modes. I think this is the balance where both endgame players and new players can really rediscover the game, have something fun to try. Back in the day, we had AE that went through so many iterations, enjoyable for both early games and endgame players alike. And since the core of this game is really awesome, and maybe more of that can be transparent to us, we can help Lilith navigate these decisions. We can help them think what new modes they actually want. AE went through so many iterations that cost you dev time. I'll bet with all these introductions, people would tell you how bad it is ahead of time, so you wouldn't have to revert everything, think about the contract, invest so many money in lawyers, just ask us, talk to us. I know there's the surveys, but there's so little transparency into what goes into that. There's also the suggestions on the Discord where top voted suggestions, great stuff from people like Artie, like AMB. I haven't seen them addressed, no response whatsoever. I think Lilith can really capitalize on that. You have this community, this resource. You have such an active subreddit for free. At least ask them, talk to us. I think it'll make the game so much better. Anyways, when it comes to priorities in these modes, obviously focusing on lower tiers is going to carry you through, so predictive tier lists are going to be stronger, the tiers that we had in the past. But there's also going to be the solidified meta. So what you see here in the corner, these kinds of characters are what you look forward to invest in. It's going to be few characters that are well invested, and it's going to be going forward for a long time. Okay, so now that I'm done with that one, in the meantime, I'll maintain the closed invite Discord. Hands down the best AFKArena community in my opinion. People there, they theory craft, they really make the most out of what we have. Shout out to the mods for helping it keep this way, and Smart Adam for the English that you're seeing on screen right now. I've started playing both AFKArena and other games like Lord of Heroes. Strategic aspect there is awesome. So if you're interested in advanced strategy, advice, or Q&A, I'm going to publish a limited link for you to join today over the community tab. If you're fast enough on the trigger, you will get to join, and I think this community is absolutely awesome. Everybody there has been making insane progress, whether you're a lurker, a content creator, anything. We promote everybody and anybody that's meaningful to this game that wants to stay in, and if you want to be a part of that, I'll definitely leave a link, so if you're fast, you can join. For now, subscribe to catch it. I hope you're doing well, and I've been Linker. Peace.